Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I want to start by saying that this morning I was very flattered to find out that mine was the most popular Basecamp. And then Rob gave the game away by saying it was the default choice. So whether you chose to come or not, thank you for turning up. I'm going to talk about automation today. As Sabrina said, I'm from Parkinson UK. I'm the Senior Email Marketing Officer. I manage the day-to-day emails at Parkinson's and the strategy for that, any integration with other platforms, including the APIs, the donation platform, the website agencies that we work with, as well as keeping tabs on supporter journeys across the fundraising directorate, including events, regional fundraising, and individual giving teams. Within this, we have quite a few automated programs that we run, of which I'll talk through a few today. Including welcome journeys, and mainly, which I'll talk about, is the donation journey as well. And then finally, segmentation and targeting on emails for, which we've really improved over kind of last 12, 14 months or so that I've been at Parkinson's, and that we won an award for, so I'll go on more on that later. So a bit about Parkinson's first, in case you haven't heard of what we do or what we are. As with many charities, their ultimate ambition is to find a cure, and while doing that, improve life for everyone affected by Parkinson's. And the three main streams of work that we work on are better treatments and eventually a cure, the empowerment for people with Parkinson's to take control, and also for everyone with Parkinson's to receive quality services as standard and not a priority. Today I'm going to cover our objectives, why we launched with Adestra, which was I think about 12 months ago now, just a bit longer. Our challenges that we thought we'd face and what we preempted, what we did to get around these using Adestra's help and various different ways of working in the organisation, a little bit on the post-purchase emails, which is a segmentation I mentioned, and then have a quick look at what we've got planned coming up and what's next over the coming months. The kind of caveat at this point, I guess, is that it's important to note that the presentation won't be full of, it won't just be a handful of really fancy automation programs like the one Rob showed actually that was 6 miles long on the presentation this morning. Automation is a very useful and time-efficient and cost-efficient way of doing things, but kind of comes with a lot of work preceding it. So hopefully I'll give you kind of more of a wider picture of, and a more realistic, in fact, picture of how you can get to that point of sending complex and money-saving automation programs. So what challenges do we face? First of all, the impact of change, especially when digital, is difficult to implement. And that was kind of before we'd started our digital transformation journey at Parkinson's as well, which has been going for about 8 or 9 months now, and has made a big difference. The main difference in that being that there's senior buy-in from the organisation. So we have a digital director for the first time that was employed, I think, just about 8 or 9 months ago. And since then, having a voice of digital, and not email marketing, but digital in general, on the board and the trustee meetings, et cetera, makes a big difference for getting stuff done, surprisingly enough. The inconsistency, so across our emails, first of all, the content, the buttons, everything, and then to the forms and the branding and the sign-up process, and everything about it was inconsistent because it wasn't managed from one central place, hence why just over 12 months ago my role was created. And if it didn't make sense internally, it's definitely not going to make sense externally, so that was a kind of priority for us to get that sorted. The batch and blast approach, which probably will be said quite a lot of times today across the presentations, so lots of different teams doing very different things without any expertise in their kind of planning or email, and no, as I said, no central overarching view of everything that's going out, so no consistency for that, which is important. The data, obviously the struggle for probably everyone, it has been for me for the last 12 months, and it's the most important element of email marketing, of course. So it's not an overnight thing, as we've learned, and as everyone is probably kind of aware of the last few months of trying to tackle it, but it's getting there, and it's a case of being patient and doing what you can with the data that you have at the time. Mobile optimization, so as Rob was saying this morning with the email templates, we didn't have that on any of our different ESPs that we were using previously to launch with Adestra. And it wasn't really a priority because there was I'm not sure if any of you in the room have a an older audience, but people with Parkinson's generally tend to be older, although not strictly limited to. There's an internal assumption or presumption that old people don't use mobiles, tablets, they're for the kids, but it's 2017, so that's not true anymore. And we actually found out that now that we're reporting on all that stuff through our email campaigns, there's a 70% average open rate on mobile or tablet, and that iPads are very, very popular with the older kind of population. And then user preferences. So we haven't got a preference center actually. So again, realistically, we're not there yet. We're not where we want to be, but we're kind of making good strides towards that. With GDPR obviously coming next May, as we just found out, or as we know already, the timing works quite well, and hopefully that will all fit in quite nicely. So our objectives, first of all, and the main thing was to implement a new ESP platform. So as I said, there wasn't a kind of central way that we were managing all our emails, and there was I think four different ESPs we were using, and each team was basically using their own thing and doing their own sort of emails, which wasn't ideal. So the integration of that with a new donation platform was also a priority, so that we could send abandoned basket emails and send our donors on a good welcome journey basically to the charity, which is something that we wasn't doing before. And obviously we've been able to do that with Adestra. Improve understanding of email marketing across the organization. So the main kind of point underneath this was to limit the belief in the organization. And I'm not just saying it's just Parkinson's, I'm sure it's the same elsewhere, but that mass Outlook emails are a good idea in email marketing, because they aren't. And doing a lot of training for teams and kind of internal awareness and PR sort of stuff made a big difference for that, and hopefully, I mean, at least the ones I've found out about have been stopped, but I'm sure there are still some going on that we'll find out as we go along. Ensure a streamlined process of entry points for our forms. So, as I said, everything was inconsistent. There was different, we were using web forms on some platforms, some on other ESPs, forms, so it was all over the place really, and we have now got to a place where we're using 3 different types of forms that all look very similar, all branded, all have the same kind of data entry process. And we use them across all of our kind of monthly emails so that people can sign up and find out more about what we do with the e-news, for example. Segmented data pots, so firstly, to do this for more targeted emails, to make the user experience better, get a better return on our emails. And then secondly, to increase the kind of, the second objective of that was to increase revenue from our online shop. So we don't have physical shops like bigger charities do, so we just have an online shop on our website. So to make kind of more revenue from that essentially, because it wasn't doing as well as it should have done. And the email at the time was the same email was being sent to 120,000 people, purely based on that they purchased something up to, I think, 8 years ago. So obviously the results and the stats on that weren't very good at all, and that needed sorting out, which I'll talk more about later today. And then finally, implement automated programs to not only become more time efficient, more cost efficient, but to improve the supporter journey being the main thing, or create a supporter journey, in fact. We didn't have any in place at the time, and everything we did was manual. So if someone did submit a form to sign up for something, a monthly newsletter, to buy something from us, whatever they were doing to submit that form, that would have to be manually handled after that, obviously taking up loads of staff time unnecessarily. So when we sat down with Adestra, what we actually did, we identified 4 key areas that we're going to need to look at. The first of those was digital design, so mobile optimized templates, as we've seen how important they can be, and how much of a difference it makes to the customers opening them and not knowing that we had a 70% on average open rate on mobile or tablet. The data capture, so again, going back to the forms, just saying how important it is that they're consistent, they're capturing the right data, and then when we do capture the data, we're processing that hopefully majority automatically and not having to do that on a kind of supporter by supporter basis and taking up loads and loads of time in the office. And then also using those forms we can edit ourselves. They're really flexible and they can be embedded into our Drupal CMS, or they can kind of fire an action from, so send an email, start a welcome journey, whatever that might be. Automation, so this is one that's had by far the biggest impact probably, just in terms of saving time and increasing capacity that we have available basically. So we weren't looking, what we kind of realized is that we weren't looking after new supporters. We were kind of doing all we can, doing loads of great work with other channels, not just email, to get the supporters on board. And then once they're on board, we were like, we've got them, let's just send them stuff. and hope they do something for us, and not really looking at the kind of journey that they're going on and tracking that either. So that was obviously a big issue that we wanted to sort out, and that helped us with automation. And I'll talk through specifically the donor journey and then a bit about the welcome journeys as well. And then email conversion, so having an abandoned basket email firing from our donation platform has been a really positive step. Again, has kind of generated us fundraising that we wouldn't have had before. So considering how little that took to set up, it's been very positive so far. And then the post-purchase emails, which we segmented on with the shop emails, which I'll go into more detail on later. So first of all, the template that we set up with the digital design team, which is just a 10-module template, essentially, that gives us enough flexibility to make our emails look different across the teams and makes them look exciting, hopefully, but doesn't go far enough to be creative that other teams who aren't so used to using Adestra or not used to doing email marketing can break the emails or send something really ugly or off-brand, essentially, which has been really useful. And then just a quick representation of a couple of the emails, again, just displaying the kind of different things you can do within quite a straightforward 10-module template. So just as a quick example, we have a research support network, because a lot of what we do is research, obviously, to find a cure. We have a research support network of about 2,000 people at the time. This was last September, I think, this email, just before we launched with Adestra. And this is all we had on it. We had the fact that it was sent to 2,000 people. It was sent through Outlook, so there was no reporting further than that on it, based on, all we could probably get was how many people replied to it, which obviously isn't that useful at all. And that's what it actually looked like, so that's not kind of distorted or squashed. It just wasn't mobile optimized, so if you opened it on an iPhone, that's exactly how it looked. So obviously not ideal at all from the user, especially for what we found out later was one of our more engaged and engaged audience with us, basically. So then launching with Adestra, we obviously then could track everything on the email, so click rate, open rate on all the usual stuff, and with the really good reporting function that they have. And then most importantly, the email is mobile optimized, so looks a lot better, obviously, just in terms of the difference. And then the big kind of stat really is the mobile opens, so being 70%, we didn't have a clue that was happening in the first case, but have learned a lot since then, and it stays at that across all of our audiences, basically, not just the research support network. So onto our forms. We have, like I said, 3 types of forms. So we have business as usual forms, so they're just the ones that you sign up. You have different teams have monthly newsletters. So that is essentially the research team, the marketing team, and the shop team sending out a monthly e-newsletter with latest research, latest news, whatever that might be, shop products. And we have these embedded in our Drupal 8 platform, which basically are all very simple, and then obviously manually triggered into a welcome program. And someone's added to a list, put in a welcome program, and then hopefully get the monthly newsletter as of kind of the month after they signed up. So it's not just getting them signed up, send them something straight away, asking them to do something. It's kind of telling them who we are, giving them a case study of someone who's affected by Parkinson's, and showing them that we appreciate them signing up, basically, rather than trying to get them to do something straight away. We have other type of forms is, the other type of forms is for specific campaigns. So the biggest one we have of that is our flagship week, which is in April every year, is Parkinson's Awareness Week. For that this year, we worked with an agency to build a microsite where you created a video, put your name in, put a lot of details in, kind of how if you've been affected by Parkinson's, what you know about it, etc., and then put that into a video specific to that person that then they could share with their networks. And obviously the idea is to get your warm contacts sharing on the networks, and then other people doing the same thing as well. So this is just a quick video, just the hero video from basically, so you've got a bit of background on what that looked like. And then this, that was the kind of background to the campaign. That was the hero video, and obviously the call to action from that was to donate to our research and help us find a cure. And then this just is a bit quicker, just the look at how you actually create a video and the video that we wanted you to share with your network. So that was the campaign, that was Parkinson's Awareness Week, and as I said, that's the example I give for kind of the how we really made a big difference with the forms that we use. So the ask before that, the donate ask, was to download a pack so that people during Parkinson's Awareness Week could go out, do their own fundraising events, hold coffee mornings, whatever it might be in their area, to kind of generate the interest locally, and then we'd obviously do it on a national scale with advertising like that. In 2016, we had less than 400 packs ordered using a Drupal 7 web form, and every order of that pack was manual. So each form completion would go through to someone in the marketing team. They'd tell our fulfillment house that someone's ordered a pack, send it to this email address, send it to this address, and that was done 400 times, obviously, which isn't time efficient. And then in 2017, we had over 1,200 pack orders. And it wasn't a fully automated process, but at least part automated on that front. In that the form was a message-focused form that we embedded in the website and the microsite that we created, and then we were able to basically send supporters on a better journey following that, and not having to kind of every time we get an email from the form completion, tell the fulfillment house and do that 1,200 times. That's just a quick snippet of what the form looked like. So very simple, obviously as simple as possible to reduce the drop-off rate. And then, yeah, 207% increase in packs from 2016 to 2017. People then went through on completion of the form to just a thank you page, which detailed what you'll be receiving and when. And again, this is the start of a supporter journey. It's not perfect, it's not comprehensive, but it's better than what was there the year before. There was a massive increase in pack orders, and I'm not saying that's just because the form was a little bit prettier and a little bit easier to fill out. There was a better journey and comms plan to get to that point, but I can guarantee that there would have been a much bigger drop-off with the form that was there before, and would have made a substantial difference basically in that front. The other kind of form we have is a Drupal 8 form. So this is built in our Drupal 8 CMS platform and is integrated with Message Focus via an API. So obviously it couldn't be simpler to fill out. It's really easy and is followed with a thank you page there. The supporter from this can be dropped into whichever list we want to do, and then obviously, as you know, as Adestra clients, can then kind of decide on what they do once they've been dropped into that list. So it's quite powerful on that front, being automated. There's still work to be done on this, so as you can see, there's no confirm email address field, so it's not perfect, but that kind of leads on to a point that I wanted to make here, in that it doesn't have to be perfect when launching. So we've moved recently since the digital director came on board, to more of an agile way of working, and kind of getting to a point where we can launch a minimal viable product or something that is good enough, and then see how it goes with the kind of live audience, and then feedback and iterate it based on what they're saying. It's made a huge difference to being able to get stuff done. So rather than having to get something perfect signed off by every man and his dog in the organization, and then by the time you launch it, it's out of date, it's made such a massive difference to how we work. And if there's one of the few things you take away today, then that would be definitely one of them. So onto actual automation program then. So the one I'm going to use as a main example is our donor journey. So we launched a new donation platform in April this year to coincide just by chance with Parkinson's Awareness Week. And our new donation platform is integrated again with Adestra using an API. Now that we had a donor journey set up, one of the first thing we wanted to kind of test or find out was when probably just the individual given team being greedy, really, but they wanted to find out when the best time to ask for a second donation is after a first ask. So as part of the journey, rather than just kind of going on a linear, thank you for donating, here's a case study, join something else or do something else or doing, the second kind of ask was to see whether they'd give again. So we, after doing some research into that, there wasn't any kind of relevant research at all, obviously not to a Parkinson's audience, even to any audience really, on when the best time to ask for a second gift is. And so we obviously figured out from that point that we'd need to do our own testing on that, so we come up with a testing plan. And then we knew that would be robust compared to our direct audience because we're testing on them and not someone else and trying to compare it because obviously every audience, even within Parkinson's UK, is different and respond to different things. We just tracked that testing plan in a very simple spreadsheet, so we had to keep a close eye on whether it was working or not. So our first kind of launch, our first try at it was asking for a second gift after 15 days. That went to about 300 people and not one person clicked on the donate button on the second ask. The good thing about that, it hasn't worked, great, let's change it. That's a good way, going back to the way of working in launching something that's good enough and then changing it so we could change that. 300 people is enough to know that it's not working. So we then moved on to a 30-day ask, which did improve, did get a lot better. And I'll go into the stats just in a sec. But then going on from this, the 30-day, obviously that's not where we're going to stop. There's going to be there might be somewhere in between that is the optimum time, or it might be longer than that, it might even be shorter than that. So there's a campaign that we're launching at the end of this year, which should be quite a big thing, hopefully quite exciting. And in that we're going to find out whether a 24-hour ask or a 45-day ask works better than the two we've tested already, and hopefully we can see from that within this kind of scale, if you think of it like that, there will be an optimum time, whether it's 28 days or 40 days, or whether we have to go longer than that even to keep getting better conversion rates. So what did it actually look like? So this was, as I said, launched in Parkinson's Awareness Week. This was just a thank you for signing up and getting our email, and then this is what once they'd made a donation, this was what the journey looked like. So as I said, 15, 16 days. The ask was in the 4th email, and again, after launching that and going through 300 people, there was a 0% conversion rate with not one person clicking on a donate button. So we had to change that quickly. Obviously, as I mentioned, we moved to the 30-day ask. We were then past Parkinson's Awareness Week, so we changed the email slightly, and this is what the donation welcome, donation thank you email looks like. So with that 30-day ask, obviously we didn't change anything about the emails because we wanted to keep the test as good as it, kind of stable as it was, so that the timing of the second ask was the main thing being tested. So the timescales are just different there. And then the results of that were quite positive. Well, the bottom line was positive. So delivery slightly down, but this went to 5 times as many people and still is running to, I think it's been over 1,500 people now. So it's not kind of, it's not a big shock to see the delivery rate gone down slightly from that, especially with certain people unsubscribing, of course. Open rate's still okay, still good, and then click rate's still okay as well, and then click to open is decent. And then obviously the main bit being the conversion rate, which is the bottom line that everyone's interested in at the end of the day. And although 1.4% probably doesn't seem a major amount, it's obviously a lot better than 0%. And we're still quite early on in this testing kind of journey or testing plan, if you like. And hopefully, obviously, that'll increase as we either shorten it to 24 hours or increase it to 45 days. So once we have a good idea of what that optimum time is, we can then set that, leave that as it is, and then look at kind of other stuff within the email, so subject lines and all the other usual suspects that come with testing content of an email. So the other automation we do, which we have set up, is an abandoned basket on our donation form, which we launched in April just with the new donation form when it launched. Just based on Adestra's advice, really, mainly Sabrina's advice, to send that after 2 hours. And although that's been running for a few months now, because we've seen that it's actually getting quite a good response, so 14% conversion rate for people who actually get that email, we haven't actually done any testing on it yet. It's just dropped down the priority list in that sense. And it's only gone to a handful of supporters, 28 people have been captured. But it's 28 people that wouldn't have donated to us before, and either the money would have been still in their pocket or to another charity or to wherever else it might have gone. So for the effort that took up to set it up, it's definitely worth doing that, and not that much of a hassle, really, depending on who you're working with in terms of the website agency, to integrate with the Adestra API. So I'd definitely advise that if you can, if that's something that you can do. The other kind of part automation that we did, so it's not a fully automated program, but hopefully this is a step in the right direction. So the post-purchase emails on our Christmas campaign in 2016, last year, so that's the period between September and December in 2016, we kind of launched a email program or plan, if you like, to go in tandem with digital ads and also the Christmas catalog that goes out as well. We used Razor's Edge, our CRM, FastStats, the platform that we use, and our fulfillment house, the data they had on people who had bought stuff from our shop. Looked at that group of people and also put it against the group of people that we're sending the current email to, which was 120,000 people a month. Exactly the same email with nothing but a hello first name. We cut that list down. We segmented that into previous card purchases from the year before, because cards are our main product. To shop customers from the previous 12 months, and then our members who'd purchased in the last 2 years, I think it was. And that eventually ended up being the list was cut from 120,000 down to 19,000, so only sending to a sixth of that audience, which, I'm sure you can imagine, took a lot of influencing and stakeholder management skills on mine and colleagues' part. But eventually got it passed, and the results speak for themselves, really. So the bottom line, again, which everyone's most interested in, was that we had a 94% increase in revenue directly from those emails compared to the 3-month period Christmas campaign in the year before, 2015. And then the other stats as well, which you can obviously read for yourself, are positive in that sense. And I think that one of the other things that I haven't put up here, but I've used kind of in a influencing manner in the workplace with more senior people, is that how that affects and has a knock-on period elsewhere. So over that same period, the 3 months at the end of 2015 to the 3 months at the end of 2016, there was a 7% increase in web-wide traffic. So whether that's people interested in the shopping, or then coming and doing something else for us, or just browsing the website and finding out more about us, downloading an information sheet, sign up to volunteer, sign up to event, whatever it is, it's going to have a knock-on effect, and that can be significant. Although it's difficult, obviously very difficult to track, that can make a big impact. So important to keep those things in mind that wouldn't come obviously out of the reporting side of Adestra, but are really useful stats. On the December email of 2016, that was recorded as the most successful ever in terms of revenue generated. That's since been beaten, so this year we launched, forgive me for launching it, if any of you got it, in August. People didn't like that, or I didn't like it, in fact, but we launched the Christmas emailing in August this year, and it was actually overtook December as the most successful. So it was probably a bit of a brave thing to do. I didn't want to do it because I don't like speaking until Christmas, until December the 1st, but people seem to have liked it, and people seem to stock up early. So again, it's something that we were a bit brave on, went for it, and it kind of really paid off. So it'd be interesting to see what our stats are kind of like at the end of December when we analyze this campaign compared to 2015 and 2016. And the main thing about this, I guess, is that I've used from it is to use it as an evidence base for other stuff around the organization. So there's a lot of, I guess, when there's a lot of change happening, it can be difficult sometimes when you haven't got the senior buy-in to give real examples of what you've done and how it's really affected. So kind of writing this up, as I'll go through in a sec, writing it up as a case study with Adestra, and kind of showing that around the organization, showing it to people when they don't agree with something that you want to do, or they don't see the value in it, sort of thing, then saying that, well, if we didn't manage to cut this list from 120,000 to 19,000, we might never have had these results here, and it wouldn't have led to everything we have done since then. So that one little thing can make a big difference, and making sure that you kind of package it into one thing, a case study, if you like, and using that across the organization for stakeholder management, it can be really useful and important. So that, again, as I mentioned, that case study with Adestra that we wrote up as a result of that, which you might have seen on their website, the good thing as a result of this, I guess, is that someone at the IOF, Institute of Fundraising for You Non-Charity People, noticed this or clocked this and invited us to enter for an award. So they have two types of award. One's a data-specific kind of category, and then they have like their national awards. So we actually went into the data-specific category and won the best, I think it's best use of insight and data analysis in digital fundraising, which was obviously really good. Meant that we then got entered into the national awards, where it's not just data-specific, and unfortunately didn't win, but got to go to a fancy award ceremony and have free lunch and beer, so silver linings. So next steps, what we're looking at next, there's 6 kind of main areas that we've identified. First of all, to keep, as I said, we're not finished with the forms. We launched something that isn't probably ready yet, but it is ready, but it's not perfect yet. It's not comprehensive, but we want to get to the point where it is. So doing more on that, finding out kind of which type of form we use on which campaign, and testing and optimizing the ones that we use on our BAU, business as usual stuff. Will be really exciting, really looking forward to see how that turns out. Conversion measurement, so finding out from our users, getting some feedback, why are they converting? Can we kind of transfer that information and intel to the people that aren't converting to try and increase those stats? And knowing that sort of stuff as well, I guess, is really useful for knowing for understanding the planning and optimization going forward across campaigns, forms, whatever it may be, or campaigns. So then donation benchmark, so as I mentioned with the donor journey testing plan that we have, working together these at the moment, we have a good insight that 15 days doesn't work, have a better journey, a better idea that 30 days doesn't work, but then we'll see kind of do the full spectrum, maybe up to 3 months, 90 days, a bit longer than that even, finding the optimum time and then going in further than that and looking at the actual email content and seeing if we can make it more exciting or more relevant so that we, again, increase our conversion rates and revenue from that. On that as well, we also have a regular upgrade campaign for our regular givers, which we're building with Adestra at the moment, which is really exciting. So currently regular givers we don't prompt them to increase their gift, but with the form that we're building and the email campaign that we're building with Adestra, hopefully that will be an automated program that just runs over and over, and every 6 months, or yet to be decided timeline, but every 6 months or so, someone will receive an email saying, thanks for your current £10 a month, £10 a year donation. Would you like to increase this by £1, £2, £3, whatever that might be? So having that kind of set up in the background, again, will kind of be, it might take a fair amount of work to get there, but once it is, hopefully all we'll have to do is test and optimize on the actual content of the email and not have to worry about all the setup stuff, which is obviously the stuff that takes the longest to do. The abandoned basket, as I mentioned, so the development of this, essentially, we haven't really done any testing or optimization on this yet so far, so it's good to know that it's going well at the moment, but I'm sure that will increase as we find out more about the audience and what they want and what they respond to. So that's very exciting. And then the testing plans, so we test on probably 99% of the emails that we send out, but hold my hands up and say that there's not an actual testing plan for every single team. There is for a couple, but just kind of get a bit of insight in terms of run tests on subject lines, color of buttons, copy, all this sort of stuff, and then let's sit down in kind of a few months' time, look at all that, see what it all actually means, and then we can kind of change our campaigns going forward and hopefully see an increase in engagement with them. And then a preference center. So we haven't got a preference center at the moment, as I mentioned, but with GDPR obviously around the corner, that will have to be in place, and it's obviously, as we know, not an overnight thing, but hopefully once that gets closer and once the more senior kind of bods realise what we need to do for that, then that will be in place and we can work with Adestra on getting that sorted. So that should be very exciting. And that's me. Thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, every single time, to be honest. But I use I feel like my best friends are the guys in the online chat, which sounds sad, but I speak to them every day probably. And using that every time is kind of even if you think you've set something up and it might not be right, there's always that within a few minutes you can get it kind of verified. So that's what I find really useful about using that, and I do utilize that more than probably others do, I guess. And And although the automation program builder can be very complex, as Rob showed this morning with his big thing, we have very kind of linear programs at the moment. We don't actually use much filters. We don't kind of have the different levels of stuff going on. We're going to get to that point, hopefully. But again, it's a case of launching something small, like like even if it's one email triggering from completing a form, and then hopefully getting to a stage where they can be more fancy and dependent on what someone's done rather than kind of the data we upload ourselves.
Any other questions? Come on.
Is this working? Yeah, hi. So Josh, from people sort of out going ahead with the similar program over the next year, from your experience over the last year, what would sort of be your key takeaway? Which sort of hurdles would you ask them to jump first?
I think the main thing for me, and I have touched on it briefly actually, the main thing definitely is to try and start small. I mean, that's not the official term for it, I'm not sure what it is, but to try and move towards working in an agile manner. And I know unless you're a CEO, unless you're a director, then you can't kind of have that overnight impact on the organization and change the way that people work, because it's a culture thing rather than just a day-to-day kind of business as usual thing. But having that at the back of your mind and when you're kind of trying to launch new stuff, so whether it is building a new automation program, whether it's integrating with another platform, don't try and get to the point where it's perfect and everyone will be really happy and nothing is wrong with it, because there'll always be something wrong. And by the time you get to the point that it's perfect and ready to go, then there'll be something else that takes your attention that's flashy and shiny, and then you get diverted from that. So to start small and then kind of iterate as you go, I think would be my key takeaway. Yeah.
How worried are you about GDPR next year?
I heard it first time, but I was just giving myself a few seconds. I'm glad you... I personally, not much, to be honest. I mean, I think it sounds a bit of a cliche, but I think it'd be a lot better. My stats on my emails are going to go up, because hopefully only people that want to receive them will be receiving them. And again, it might work different in every organization, and I work in a charity that we have like an IT team and a data team that, to be honest, are kind of taking the lead on it. I'm on a project group for it, but it's not really my responsibility to do it across the whole organization. So, I mean, it's going to have a massive impact, of course, but as long as everyone's aware of what it will do and is ready for it, then I don't think there should be major issues.
How much does the demographics, so your audience obviously is naturally slightly older, how much does that affect the look and feel of your emails, so both newsletter and automated?
We try and make them as simple as possible, but still obviously look exciting as possible. It's a bit of a fine line between the two, because we not recently, I guess, but for the last 6 months or so, we've started using GIF, whatever the correct word for them is, movable images, and we've had feedback from the Research Support Network, which is our oldest audience in terms of age demographic, saying that they don't really understand why they're there or what they're adding to the campaign, and that's fine. That's good feedback. You know, we'll stop using them in the Research Support Network emails, but then can continue to use them in other in the emails that are to a more general demographic that are not specifically older. So, getting the feedback is the main thing on that. Doing what you think is the best thing, which probably won't be eventually, but then taking the feedback and making sure you take it on board and changing it for what suits that person.
Hi. How do you, or do you ever have to consider if you've got supporters who fall into multiple automations and how you prioritize? So we, at the moment, that isn't a concern. Basically, we don't have that kind of level of detail within the automations. We don't kind of restrict someone being in another one if they have to, because I'd like to think that we've got our emails, like the day-to-day management of them, segmented enough that if people were interested in the Research Support Network, they were interested in our shop, they were interested in our events, they were interested in our regional fundraising, that the emails go at different times to be able to, we don't send more than one email a day, and we try to kind of keep the big ones at least a week apart, if that makes sense, the ones going to the big audiences. So hopefully the segmentation is enough to not have to worry about that. It's definitely a concern, but we don't have anything set up to combat that at the moment, to be honest, yeah.
can just sort of add to that from a desk point of view regarding the automation and prioritise. You can prioritise, so you can take people out, put people in, so you can have, everyone needs to receive this, and then they can receive the next, and take them out and then put them back in as you go, so you're not going to have that experience of multiple journeys at one time.
How has your spend, or sorry, your investment with Adestra changed over time since you've started doing all of this stuff, if you can tell us?
Yeah, there's no one from the room from Parkinson, so I can probably reveal everything. No, we actually signed, we signed a 2-year contract, I think, back in September, and that was a kind of a, this is what you'll get for it, and this is what you'll do, and we kind of set up with loads of different features of what Adestra offer, and kind of paid for them in one, kind of in the monthly contract thing. So I guess since then we've only done a couple of pieces of work that we've needed budget for, and that's been the upgrade campaign, which we're doing at the moment, as I said, to get the fancy automation program that we'll need for that to build, and the email that comes as a result of that. But not much more than that, actually. We just, like I said, it kind of comes in that 2-year contract that we initially signed, so sorry, that's probably not that helpful, but.
When you're talking about cutting your list size for the post-purchase emails, how did you have those conversations with your senior stakeholders before you had all those lovely shiny figures of how well it had done?
Banging my head against the wall for hours and hours I think, no, in all honesty, we've got, like I mentioned, we've got a digital director who come on board a few months after I started, actually. And even in that kind of few months that I was there and trying to push things through when we first launched Adestra, having her come on board and having that say at a senior level, kind of, it meant that all I had to do really was go to her, say what I want, get her on board. She's digital, she knows that, like, she understands it. Get her on board so it's easier, and then she can kind of do the rest of the influencing. Because if I strolled up to a trustee meeting and said I need, this much money to do this, that's not going to mean much. Whereas if a digital director does that, it's going to mean a lot. So I know everyone's not in that position to have that person there. That's how it worked for me, but I'd say probably try and do that, identify someone in a senior enough position to probably have a good say on that level, convince them, do the influencing with them, and then ask them to kind of level it up, sort of thing, rather than strolling into a trustee or a board meeting and saying, I want to do this, sort of thing.
Have you got any tips for encouraging maybe teams that are not particularly interested in doing nice emails to get them to do it without sort of threatening and, yeah.
Yeah, don't send threats, that's one tip. I think it's been a real mix. We've got, I think, 10 different teams using the message focus platform at Parkinson's, and there's probably 60-70% of those, 6 or 7 of them, that have come to me and want to do exciting things because they can see, from the case study, for example, that they've seen. Obviously, I send that around so everyone using email can understand it. They've come to me and said, oh, the shop email have just done that, and look at the PR they've got for it. Like, we want to do something like that. Let's do that sort of thing. So I'm probably quite lucky in that sense because most of them do want to come to me, which sounds like it isn't your case. For the ones that haven't, it's using those things that you get. So try and, again, even if it's identifying a team that you think might be most open to it, doing something as kind of, not complex as such, but as advanced as you can with them, hoping that it gets good results, or doing something that gets good results, writing that up and making it into not necessarily a case study that you put online anywhere, but do some internal PR on it. And then once you get that person that you've identified talking to other people, even if it's through conversations over lunchtime, etc., not even formally, that we did this with the email marketing team, they're great, and they did this, and we, then that's kind of the way to do it. I think that would be my best advice. That won't work by the looks on your face. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Thank everyone for attending.